the end of the urgent question. I'll give the front benches a few moments to shuffle over as we prepare for the first statement. Statement on UK-EU Common Understanding negotiations, and I call the Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And with permission, I'd like to make a statement on the Government's strategic partnership with the EU. The Government was elected with a manifesto commitment to reset relations with our European partners, to tear down unnecessary barriers to trade and to cut costs and red tape for British producers and retailers, to increase national security through strong borders and greater cooperation with our closest allies, and indeed to support jobs here in the UK and opportunities abroad. And in May this year, this Government agreed a new strategic partnership with the EU that the Prime Minister announced at the historic UK-EU summit, the first of its kind. It's a landmark deal that is good for bills, good for our borders and good for jobs. And we took this decision, exercising our sovereignty, to strike a deal in the national interest. We had to fix a bad deal passed on to us by the previous government, the first trade deal in history that made it harder to trade. And just as we have done with the US and India, this Labour government is striking deals to bring down bills for British people and open new opportunities for British businesses. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, since the summit, I've led negotiations with the European Commission to implement the commitments we made. So I'm therefore pleased to inform the House that earlier today, the UK and the European Commission concluded negotiations for the UK's association to Erasmus Plus from 2027. And it will open up world-class opportunities for students, teachers, youth workers, sports sector professionals and communities of all ages in our education, training, sport and youth sectors, both for the professionals that work in those sectors and, crucially, for our young people too. And for students, this means more chances to study, to train, to work, to volunteer abroad, gaining language skills and experience that makes them attractive to employers. For our teachers, youth workers and those who work in the sports sector, it means greater opportunities for professional development. And for our schools, colleges, universities and providers, it means access to networks and partnerships that will drive quality, encourage research links and enhance the reputation of the UK's world-leading education system. And indeed, I was meeting with students at the New City College in Hackney this morning, Madam Deputy Speaker, to see the range of benefits they're going to be, including also playing basketball. Now, as part of Erasmus Plus, participants can travel to any European Union member state and indeed several countries outside the European Union as well. It will go further than schemes that have come before it, offering a broader scope of activity and a specific focus on unlocking opportunities for all. This is an investment in opportunity for young people from all backgrounds, our workforce and our future, and it will open doors for tens of thousands more young people across the UK, renewing our ties with Europe and beyond. This Labour government has always been clear that we want young people, no matter what their background or where they live in this country, to have access to the best opportunities in life. It's what we consistently delivered and is what we are delivering with this announcement today. And we're pleased that the EU has agreed financial terms that represent a fair balance between the UK's contribution and the benefits this programme offers. The 30% discount in 2027 compared to the default terms in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement is what has paved the way for UK participation in the programme. And we have also agreed, Madam Deputy Speaker, there will be a review of the UK's participation in the programme 10 months after our association, so we can look at the actual data concerning the demand for funding in the UK. And going forward, any continued participation in Erasmus Plus under the next multi-annual financial framework will be informed by that data and our experience of association in 2027. We've always said, Madam Deputy Speaker, we won't sign deals unless they're in the national interest, and in this case, I'm happy to say the agreement passed that test. The government will now work to maximise take-up across all sectors so the benefits of Erasmus Plus association can be fully realised. We'll work closely with institutions and our young people to support this, particularly amongst disadvantaged groups. And a UK national agency will be appointed to administer the programme in due course. In addition, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased to inform the House that the UK and the European Commission have also concluded exploratory talks on the UK's participation in the EU's internal electricity market. And the details of this will be set out in an exchange of letters that will be published next week between Commissioner Maros Šefčovič and myself. Closer cooperation on electricity will bring real benefits to businesses and consumers across Europe. It will drive down energy costs and protect consumers against volatile fossil fuel markets. It will drive up investment in the North Sea and strengthen energy security. The UK and the EU will now proceed swiftly with negotiations on a UK-EU electricity agreement. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, that is not all. I welcome the clarification from the European Commission today that in practice there should be no carbon border adjustment mechanism costs levied on UK electricity exports, a welcome development that reflects our extensive use of renewables. Negotiations to link our carbon markets are also underway. This will cut costs, it will make it cheaper for UK companies to move to greener energy, and once agreed, it will save UK goods exports from EU CBAM charges on £7 billion worth of UK exports. Negotiations on the food and drink agreement are also underway, which will enable food and agricultural businesses to trade more cheaply and easily by slashing red tape and costly paperwork introduced by the last government. Whether it's the £200 businesses currently face for export health certificates on every single shipment, or small businesses choosing not to trade with the EU altogether. And the new agreement that we have will put this right, boosting our exports, cutting costs for importers and bringing down prices on supermarket shelves. The UK and the EU are committed to implementing the commitments of the May 2025 summit in a timely manner. We are working swiftly to conclude negotiations on that food and drink deal and linking our carbon markets, I can tell the House, by the time of the next UK-EU summit in 2026. So across all these areas, the UK is clear, of course, there will be no return to the single market, customs union or freedom of movement. We will agree deals that are in our national interest. This government is exercising our sovereignty to deliver for the British people. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are committed to building this new strategic partnership with the European Union. Indeed, I spoke with my counterpart in the Commission, Maros Šefčovič, last week, where we underlined our shared commitment to implementing the common understanding the Prime Minister and the Commission President agreed at the UK-EU summit in May. Whether it is through boosting opportunities for young people and educators across the country, or cutting energy bills, or a food and drink deal that slashes red tape and cuts costs, I will always negotiate in the interests of this country and our people. And I will continue, Madam Deputy Speaker, to lead negotiations with the Commission. I look forward to the next annual UK-EU summit where this government will continue to build that new strategic partnership. It is what a grown-up, pragmatic relationship looks like. We work together under shared aims for mutually beneficial solutions to our shared problems. That is the approach this government is taking. That is the approach that is delivering results, and I commend this statement to the House.
Call the Shadow Minister, Mike Wood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We on this side of the House recognise the importance of giving young people educational opportunities, but it is vital that the government benches clearly don't recognise the need for schemes to offer genuine value for money. Now, the UK already had the opportunity to remain a member of Erasmus, but it was precisely because the last government recognised that that scheme did not offer value for money to the taxpayer that we chose not to. And that is why the previous government created the Turing scheme instead. A global programme for young people in the UK that did not require a one-sided blank cheque to be handed over to Brussels. Now, the Turing scheme delivered 43,000 placements around the world last year, 23,000 of them to learners from disadvantaged backgrounds at a cost of just over £100 million. So can the Minister confirm that this statement does not in any way undermine the future of the Turing scheme, that that scheme is guaranteed, or are those opportunities being sacrificed for the smaller number of opportunities available under Erasmus+? Now, the Minister has confirmed that the UK is to pay £570 million as the cost of rejoining Erasmus+. We understand that is being paid for from existing budgets. So can the Minister tell us where is that money coming from? Or is this £570 million being added to the £6 billion send black hole that the OBR identified in the education budget? And does the Minister expect more than the 10,000 students a year from the UK who previously took part in Erasmus Plus to take part in the new scheme, or are we paying £570 million for essentially 10,000 placements a year? Now, the Minister spoke about a fair contribution being a 30% discount. Of course, it's only a matter of weeks since the government was briefing that a fair contribution would be a 50% discount. So it's clearly failed in those negotiations. But can the Minister assure us that whilst he says he's got this discount in the first year, that a discount will be available in subsequent years? And if that hasn't yet, those assurances haven't yet been received, is he prepared to walk away if the EU does not offer us a similar deal in future years? So the opposition has set out clear tests to ensure the government does not roll back on Brexit, including no backsliding on free movement. So can the Minister outline what protections will be put in place to ensure that rejoining Erasmus does not simply mean a return to free movement by the back door for young people? This is particularly important given his complete failure, when asked multiple times, to set out what size of cap he thinks would be appropriate for youth mobility. Now, rejoining Erasmus is just the latest attempt by the government to undo Brexit by stealth. And this fact became, Madam Deputy Speaker, this fact became clear from the very outset of these negotiations, when the government agreed to surrender UK fishing rights for 12 years to the EU, under the pretence that this would, and I quote, pave the way for the UK defence industry to participate in the EU's proposed new defence fund. Yes, 6 months later, this deal has collapsed after the EU's extortionate demands for billions of pounds to join the fund, with no guarantee of any return on the investment in the form of procurement. So can the Minister explain to our hard-working fishing industry why they won't be getting their fish back even after this deal has fallen through? Madam Deputy Speaker, the British people made clear their decision to take back control in 2016, but despite the government's protestations, their approach shows an increasing disregard for this democratic decision.
Thomas Simmons.
If I get this right, I chose not to sign up to participation in Safety. It didn't represent value for money, and they're criticising me for that. They're now criticising me for signing up to something that is value for money. So let me just tell him about fish. I'll tell you what's a big advantage to our fishing sector that exports 70% of their catch to the EU. The food and drink agreement that I am going to secure by the time of the next UK-EU summit. That is what will benefit our fishers. And as for his point about the Turing scheme, I should just say from the dispatch box, first of all, that any person in this academic year currently on the Turing scheme will continue to be funded. I think it's important that I say that. But I have to tell him, I mean, the honourable gentleman's numbers are absolutely all over the place. And the Erasmus Plus, first of all, the Erasmus Plus scheme has changed significantly since the version that his government walked away from. But not only that, come off it. Do you think seriously that that lot could have secured a 30% discount at all? Absolutely not. So, the last year of the Turing scheme, the one figure the honourable gentleman did get right was that it was 43,200 people. Erasmus is a far bigger scheme. We will be looking for tens of thousands, 100,000 plus young people and others having opportunities from Erasmus. But let me just tell him this as well. It is a lot broader in terms of the opportunities than the Turing scheme. Because unlike the Turing scheme is about colleges, it's about schools, universities. Erasmus Plus has wider opportunities around youth work, around sports, around staff being able to have professional exchanges as well. And let me just say, before they start talking about the fact that Turing is all around the world, the fact is that the grant-making bodies for Erasmus Plus in the UK can still allocate 20% of the funding if they want to, if people want to go to other parts of the world as well. So what this is doing is vastly increasing the opportunities, not just for young people, but for adult learners as well. And frankly, if the Conservative position is now to oppose a massive expansion in opportunities for young people, I will welcome that debate at the next election.
Rosie Writing. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Young people have lost so much. The pandemic kept them in their homes when they should have been in the classroom. Years of austerity under the Tories saw cuts to the services they rely on, and a bad Brexit deal stopped the invaluable chance to study abroad in Europe. Rejoining Erasmus opens up real opportunities for young people to study, train and gain experience abroad. So can the Minister talk more about how this experience can help young people grow in confidence and get them work ready?
Absolutely, my honourable friend is quite right about the wonderful opportunities this presents, not just around self-confidence, but the young people I was talking to only this morning at an FE college about how going overseas had helped them to grow as people. But don't just take my word for it. The Association of Colleges says this is brilliant news for further education colleges. Universities UK, fantastic news for the UK. The Russell Group universities, we are delighted, they say, about this reassociation. But who is opposed to this? The Conservative Party.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Dr Al Pinkerton.
Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Minister for his statement? We welcome his announcement today. As a recovering academic, which is a distinction I think I share with the Minister, I have witnessed firsthand the impact that the exiting the Erasmus scheme had on university student intake. Welcoming students from across the EU into our education institutions and giving our own students the opportunities to study abroad undeniably has strengthened our education system. So after years of campaigning, the Liberal Democrats welcome the news that the UK is finally set to rejoin the Erasmus scheme from 2027. However, and I'm sure the honourable gentleman expected there to be a however, whilst this represents an important first step towards rebuilding a closer relationship with Europe, I urge the Minister to go further and faster. So beyond this fixed-term experience of Erasmus+, will the Government commit to a proper youth mobility scheme for the benefit of the next generation? So can the Minister update the House on what progress has been made in those negotiations? Secondly, can he state how confident that he is that a food, drink and SPS agreement will be agreed by 2026? And how long thereafter will it take to fully implement that scheme? Agri-food and horticultural businesses cannot afford any further delays. And then finally, on the subject of unnecessary barriers to trade, which is where he started his statement, will his department commit at the very least to conducting a transparent assessment of the potential economic growth benefits of a UK-EU customs deal of the kind that this House voted for last week?
Thank you. So on the issue of the youth experience scheme, which I see being in the context of the 13 youth mobility schemes that already exist, many of which signed by the previous government, though they seem to have collective amnesia these days about it. That, together with the linking of our emissions trading systems and the food and drink agreement, we're aiming to conclude negotiations by the next summit. Now, he asked me the direct question about the implementation of the food and drink agreement. I want to see it implemented by the first half of 2027. That will mean a piece of legislation in Parliament in 2026 and getting it through Parliament. I hope, whatever our views may be, that we will have support in doing that as quickly as possible in 2027. Then I want to say more broadly as well about Erasmus Plus just for a moment. Indeed, it applies to the youth experience scheme as well. I want both of them to be open to people of all backgrounds across the United Kingdom. And Erasmus Plus, of course, people often talk about it as a university exchange programme, and of course that is a vital part of it, but it isn't just a university exchange programme. It is accessible across the country. I've been looking, for example, at the Welsh Government's Tithe programme, which has done an extremely good job with regard to accessibility, and I think where there are lessons to be learned from that, we will absolutely do it. Where, of course, the Honourable Gentleman and I disagree is on the issue of the customs union, because the government has only in recent days signed an additional free trade agreement with South Korea. We have the economic deal with the United States, the free trade deal with India. All those things would have to be torn up if we went on the path suggested.
Hayes.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I warmly welcome the announcement that the UK will rejoin Erasmus+. I had the opportunity to live and work in Europe as a young person aged 18, and it is an experience that has continued to benefit me throughout my life. And can I particularly welcome the extension of the scheme beyond study and the government's desire to extend that opportunity to young people from all backgrounds. It is one of the very many detriments of Brexit that young people were denied that opportunity to live and work and study through the Erasmus scheme. In announcing this very welcome development today, can the Minister confirm that he will now also be turning his attention to some of the other detriments that continue to be experienced, particularly by small and medium-sized businesses in my constituency, as a consequence of being unable now to trade in Europe because of barriers resulting from Brexit? And can he confirm work is ongoing in this area and that all options that are in the national interest will remain on the table?
My old friend is quite right, and on the first point, there will be now tens of thousands more people, many of them young people, who are going to benefit from the accession to Erasmus+. From what the Shadow Minister is saying, I think seriously they are going to go into the next election opposing people having these additional opportunities. To her second point around reducing trade barriers, 16,000 businesses since Brexit have stopped trading with the EU altogether, and she can be assured that on the food and drink agreement, the work is ongoing to seek to complete those negotiations by the next summit.
Select Committee Chair Simon Hall.
Well, with his white shirt and red tie, the Minister is doing a very good impression of an early visit from Santa. The announcements that he has made this afternoon are, I think, to be warmly welcomed. And he is to be personally congratulated for the good faith and the patience which he has shown with his, in his conversations with Mara Sekovic and others, and it is clearly paying dividends. Would he agree with me that those of us on this side of the House who last week voted against the idiotic proposal from the Liberal Democrats for a customs union have been proved right and then wrong, because the evolution of the relationship within the guardrails of the existing arrangement are the way to go, preserving those new free trade deals and seeing them extend, whilst encouraging businesses to trade with Europe?
Absolutely, and is always the case with the Honourable Gentleman. He makes sensible, well-informed contributions to this House. I'm very grateful for his kind words and his personal congratulation, which is deeply appreciated. And he is entirely right. There is a set of guardrails that are this government's democratic mandate, not to rejoin the single market customs union or go back to freedom of movement. We are exercising that independent trade policy, and we've seen that in recent days with the deal with South Korea. And within that framework, the announcement today shows that the negotiations are progressing and delivering tangible results for the British people.
We have less than 45 minutes for this statement, so questions must be short. Uma Kamaran.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for his announcement on Erasmus Plus today. It is hugely welcome news in Stratford and Bow for students and my youngest constituents. Before I came to this place, I worked with the Mayor of London calling for an Erasmus scheme. And as a member of the UK-EU Parliamentary Partnership Assembly, we've constantly called for this alongside our European partners. So that students can have the same chances for opportunity that we had, so that they don't suffer the consequences of a Brexit they had no say in. Can the Minister outline the next steps of the UK's participation in this?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and I should say thank you as well for the work that she does in the Parliamentary Partnership Assembly, and indeed broadly the work that is done by that group. Clearly, there now needs to be an appointment of a national agency. I'm sure the House will appreciate that's a commercially sensitive matter, but I certainly hope to be doing that very, very soon to make sure that we have all that we need in place to support those who would like to participate from 2027. There will be great opportunities available. I look forward to doing all I can as a Minister to support people into them.
Barclay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister's statement didn't seem to say what the contribution to the EU will be. Media reports suggest £570 million, so that it can open borders to have youth workers and others come to the UK at a time of rising unemployment. Could you just confirm what is the amount that will be paid, and that will be more than will be raised from the family farm tax, which the budget said even at the end of this Parliament would only raise up to £500 million a year?
So you would expect the price to be £810 million. With the discount, it is £570 million. However, the Honourable Gentleman is completely misunderstanding because, of course, substantial amounts of that money come back in the form of grants to our own people who are applying to be on the scheme. But what I've also done, to his point about value for money, is I've also made sure that this argument around a fair balance is embedded. That is the basis we will continue on. But there will be, after 10 months, a review of this on exactly this point to look at that balance between contribution and participation. But if he wants to do something useful in terms of the balance, he could do a lot of work encouraging his own constituents to participate.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for this statement. As a proud Erasmus graduate, and as the first in my family to go to university, and as a carer for my late mother, I didn't study abroad. I stayed at home and commuted to university, so Erasmus was the first time I was able to experience that. And I think back to now, many years on, I still have connections and friendships formed from that scheme, and now to know that the young people in my constituency will be able to benefit from that is so, so vital. Can the Minister just outline a bit more in terms of the time frame so that we can make sure that this is rolled out not just to those young people in university, but to those apprentices, to those youth workers, to those studying, to make sure they get their life skills and experiences that are so rich and that will stay with them for life?
Minister.
Yeah, my honourable friend speaks very powerfully about the transformative experience that she had, and my aim today is to have, in years to come, others who can speak similarly of the transformative experience that she has had. With regard to moving forward, as I say, firstly, it will be about the appointment of that national agency, but it is then about really important work next year, getting the application process up and running, but making sure that people have that information and are supported to be able to take advantage of the wonderful opportunities that will be coming in 2027.
Lena Moran.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Hallelujah! It feels like some common sense is finally re-entering this debate, and I warmly welcome this, and so do my constituents in Oxford, West and Abingdon, who I remember wrote to me at the time, many of whom literally in tears, because they were worried that they wouldn't be able to participate, and in fact they couldn't. But I do hear what others are saying, trying to pooh-pooh how much this is worth. It's not just about the money, but there is money to be recouped here too. There will have been an impact assessment. How much is this worth to the UK economy now and going forwards?
Minister.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I can't better the first word that she used as part of that contribution. And of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, as we move forward, we will be making the kind of assessments that the Honourable Lady is talking about. And she's absolutely right to say this will make a significant contribution to our workforce and indeed to our economy. But I will also say as well, because we hear the chuntering from opposite, it isn't only about money. This is also about the way in which young people's lives, and indeed adult learners' lives as well, are going to be enriched in so many ways. This is something we should celebrate across the House.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I congratulate the Minister on doing what I think many of us have felt has been needed in this relationship between the European and the UK, which is what therapists call active listening.
and actually listening to our neighbours and what they are interested in and where we can do a deal, and recognising in a relationship that those who keep making random demands, whether it is about a customs union or rejoin or fish, fail to recognise the importance of communication to negotiation. I note that the original wreckers of this relationship have not turned up today to explain to Britain's young people who bore the consequences of their bad behaviour on their future why they felt that was necessary. But he will also know there are many more people in this country and in our constituencies now looking at the work he's doing to repair this relationship and seeking some Christmas cheer. So for all those businesses still facing the piles of paperwork and mountains of red tape, can you play Santa a little bit more and tell us about what 2026 might bring in resetting this relationship and getting Britain back on track with its neighbours?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. I pay warm tribute to the campaigning work that she does on this issue. And in 2026, at that next UK-EU summit, as is agreed, what we will be seeking to do is to complete the negotiations on a food and drink agreement, which would mean less red tape, less cost for businesses, the linkage of our emissions trading system so that we don't have our businesses levied with carbon taxes, and also completing the negotiations on the youth experience scheme to have even more opportunities for our young people. That will be a positive 2026.
Julie Lewis.
May I thank the Minister for the work he did in another capacity on behalf of the victims and the relatives of the victims of the infected blood scandal. He did a very good job, and he reached out to us in a much appreciated non-partisan way. Now, this statement's entitled EU-UK Common Understanding Negotiations. Is it his understanding, as the Minister for EU Relations, that the people with whom he's having dealings are still bent on the creation of a federal United States of Europe? And do I detect some chuntering on the opposite benches to suggest that some people in this House might want to be a part of that?
Minister.
Well, on the second part, I think he's best directing that question to the Commission. But could I just, in relation to the first part of his question, I always, and he knows this, have worked cross-party on infected blood, and I will continue to do so. I think that's very, very important. But also just to say, in relation to working with our European friends and neighbours, whether it is the work the Prime Minister is doing, leading the coalition of the willing, or the work we are even doing, the painstaking work we are doing in recent days on Russian assets, that close relationship, that UK-EU strategic partnership is crucial for our nation's security.
Hannah Dollymore.
I really welcome the return of Erasmus, and with it the opportunity for young people in Hastings and Rye to study and train in Europe again. As a coastal town, we also want to see the return of our closest link with our European neighbours, bringing back international trains to Ashford International, which this Labour government is supporting. I hear many South East colleagues echoing those calls. So, could the Minister, in his discussions with European colleagues, encourage those discussions with Eurostar and urge Virgin Trains, who will be soon running trains on that line, and Sir Richard Branson to stop at Ashford International? Minister, that was a wide.
I think my honourable friend did manage to create some cross-party consensus then, which is pleasing to see. But look, she makes a very powerful case. I certainly, whether it is with regard to the particular issue around Ashford that she raises, but many other issues of transport as well, my door is always open to these issues, and I'd very much welcome her making those representations formally to me as well.
Stephen Gethins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, it's almost 30 years, I'm afraid to say, since I made the transformative journey from Dundee to Antwerp for my Erasmus experience. Can I thank the Minister, because there is some progress in this. Can I ask him a couple of practical questions? One is, obviously there's a different higher education system in Scotland. Scottish universities are very involved in this. How will the financial mechanisms work? Has he worked that out with the Scottish Government and other devolved administrations? And secondly, I want to see all young people have the opportunities that he and I enjoyed When will we see a return to freedom of movement for our young people entirely?
Minister?
Well, I disappoint you on the last bit because we won't be going back to freedom of movement. But in terms of the question he raised, I was talking to the Scottish Government only first thing this morning, and that same issue was raised. And obviously it doesn't affect the home fees position. And by the way, that is distinct in England, Scotland, and indeed in Wales. So in the university context that he's talking about, some would have their home fees position, but then in a particular year they could, for example, take a gap year and take advantage, hopefully, of the Erasmus Plus opportunity. I'm pleased to hear that Erasmus Plus was transformative for the Honourable Gentleman in Antwerp, and I hope we will have many more people soon who can say the same.
And Zeichner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I commend my right honourable friend for his diligent and detailed work on this. It really is proper grown-up politics, as he said. The return of Erasmus will be widely welcomed in Cambridge, where it's helped many young people in the past and will help an even wider group in the future. But could I just press him on the point about the SPS agreement? I think he confirmed we'll see the back of the wretched export health certificates in 2017. If so, that's a fantastic change. Is that correct?
Minister?
Yes, indeed, and there are fees on businesses today, £200 per consignment on export health certificates, £1,400 if you're selected for sampling, £61 identity checks, all of which can be swept away when the SPS agreement is implemented. And as I indicated in relation to the Liberal Democrat spokesperson, the objective is to implement it in the first half of 2027.
Morrison.
The intentions behind the Erasmus scheme are unobjectionable, but 570 million is an awful lot of money. So I'm very pleased that there will be a review after 10 months. Will that review include an assessment of the scheme against what happened in the past, which essentially was to provide a benefit for predominantly middle-class humanities university students? And will he ensure that the opportunity cost to further education, which is tasked with upskilling our young people from a different demographic, are adequately taken into account?
Minister?
Well, first of all, in relation to the further education, and by the way, I do agree with the point that this has to be open to people from all backgrounds. And I do think the Erasmus Plus scheme of today is very different even to how it was 10 years ago. But to give him some reassurance, the Chief Executive of the Association of Colleges that represents our FE sector called this today, and I quote, "brilliant news for staff and students of all ages in further education colleges." I hope that gives him the reassurance that it isn't simply about universities, hugely important though our university sector is. And secondly, to his point about the review is absolutely data-led. We've had this debate before about participation versus contribution. I've always said there has to be a fair balance. That's why I've negotiated the discount in the way that I have. But what that review will do is allow us to move forward on the basis of solid data and numbers of participants, and data-led decision-making is what I'm always in favour of.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As Chair of the UK EU PPA, can I firstly welcome today's statement and also commend my honourable friend for the stellar job that he is doing, showing that this Labour government is making very, very good progress on rebuilding our relationships with the EU. Rejoining Erasmus Plus is a big win for young people in Battersea and across the country, creating opportunities to study, to train, to develop new skills, achieve success, and more importantly, thrive. So can the Minister just outline just a bit more about how young people will be able to access the Erasmus Plus scheme?
Briefly outline, Minister.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for the work that she does co-chairing the PPA. In 2026, it's critical that we have both the national agency but also then the simplest process that we possibly can have for people to be able to access a very wide range of benefits. I hope that's short enough, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Carmichael.
It's great to see the Paymaster General at the dispatch box as always. It would be even better if we could see him at the EFRA Select Committee, who are taking a close interest in the Food and Drink Agreement. Can I remind him that Boris Johnson got it badly wrong with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement because he allowed the political imperative of getting a deal to trump the detail of that deal, and that was because he didn't listen to the fishermen, the farmers and the other food producers. Will he keep them close as he negotiates it, and will he come to talk to the Select Committee? We really won't bite him, I promise.
Minister.
I'll hold him to that promise, Madam Deputy Speaker. But in relation to working with the sectors, he's absolutely right. And as we move forward, firstly to complete the negotiations for detailed legal text on the SPS agreement, but also as we move into the implementation phase, everyone understands we are reducing barriers, we are cutting red tape, we are making trade easier, but absolutely we have to work with whether it's our fishers, our farmers, but all the agri-food sector as well to make that as smooth as possible.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The return to UK's involvement in Erasmus is hugely welcome, not only for my constituents who are at university, but also those working or learning in schools, FE colleges and working in the sports and youth sectors. So could my right honourable friend please outline what steps the government is going to be taking, particularly to those based in those sectors not previously involved, so that they can expect to and plan for involvement in Erasmus from 2027?
No, my honourable friend raises a really important point. And, for example, this morning, the first place I wanted to visit was a further education college, the New City College in Hackney. So I'm really keen that the FE sector gets the full benefit, but she's absolutely right. Proactively reaching out, whether it's the youth sector, whether it's in terms of adult learners, whether it's in terms of staff and professional training, that's going to be really important because people can then understand the opportunities that are there if they want to take advantage of them.
I only have 20 minutes remaining, so colleagues must keep their questions short and the answers just as short. Dame Harriet Bolwin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could the Minister just spell out for the House's benefit how much taxpayers' money he's signed up to spending next year and then for every year in this Parliament? And in terms of value for money, where Parliament can read about the value for money, and what line item of the budget this money has come out of?
Minister.
1 year, £570 million, which is a 30% discount, better than the party opposite ever achieved. 10 months in, you'll have a full review of both participation and contribution. And I say gently to the honourable lady, if she is going to go into the next election saying that young people in her constituency who benefit from Erasmus Plus should no longer do so, I'd welcome that debate.
Grace.
Speaker, as a member of the EU-UK PPA, I absolutely welcome the statement today, but particularly that we will be rejoining the Erasmus Plus scheme to the benefit of young people in Exeter we should never have left. This is the next step in rebuilding relations with our closest neighbours after such a catastrophic period under the previous government. Does the Minister agree with me that it's only through cooperation with our closest European neighbours and partners and not isolation that we get the cultural, social and economic growth that this country really needs?
Minister.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. There are mutual benefits, mutual objectives, and I'm afraid to say in modern-day Europe, mutual threats that are faced by the UK and the EU. That closer cooperation to deliver results is absolutely crucial.
Cameron Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This deal will not give back the futures that were stolen from so many young people by Boris Johnson's government, but it does offer those futures to people going forward. It is good work. That said, small, medium and large businesses in Tewkesbury and the economy at large need the government to stop fumbling around the edges. It is time for the Minister to speak to the government and get us a customs union with the European Union. Is it not?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is time to deliver concrete results, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
James Nash.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I saw a good joke earlier which said, it was one-liner, Lib Dem campaigning works. I don't think so. It's this Labour government that has delivered the change today. University of Nottingham staff in my constituency face considerable pressure due to ongoing restructuring. I wonder what the Minister would say today to those staff under intense pressure about what this offers at an organisational level for our universities.
I mean, my honourable friend raises a really important point, and I think that this is clearly good news and a good deal for our universities sector. I think that is why both Universities UK and the Russell Group have come out supporting this in such glowing terms today.
Conor Lockhart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Forgive me for not being full of Christmas cheer, because whilst people are welcoming this announcement, businesses in Northern Ireland are being disadvantaged, rising costs, significant trade barriers because of the Windsor Framework, delivery not available, are regular for online shoppers in Northern Ireland. The immediate cliff edge of veterinary medicines, ICS2 and type approval for cars. When will this government stand up for Northern Ireland's place within the Union and sort out the trade barriers of this internal market?
Thank you. And I spoke to both the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland only this morning to discuss in particular the arrangements around Erasmus Plus and indeed the other announcements I've made on electricity as well. But I say to the Honourable Lady, I'm responsible as well for the Windsor Framework. I can assure her that it is a top priority for me. It is a top priority as well for the Prime Minister, who has a particular personal interest in Northern Ireland, having been the Human Rights Advisor to the Policing Board. And with regard to barriers to trade that she's referring to on the Irish Sea, it is precisely the result of pushing forward and getting the SPS deal implemented quickly that will allow us to lower those barriers on the Irish Sea, which is what I'm determined to do.
Annalise Dodds, after which I will come to Steve Darling.
Thank you. I also welcome progress on Erasmus, but can I ask about progress on another commitment from the May Summit, that to advance cooperation on foreign information manipulation and interference, and to work together to fight violent extremism, including in its online dimension. The UK and the EU do indeed face threats including threats to our digital sovereignty from the same powerful people, so surely we need to urgently work together.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, whether it's in terms of information or indeed hybrid warfare. I've visited whether it's Estonia in opposition, but other parts of Eastern Europe as well, and I see what is happening on this every day. She's absolutely right in terms of the importance of partnership between the UK and the EU on this. It's in our national interest.
Thank you. And it is brilliant news for our young people today around the reinstatement of the Erasmus scheme. I would like to highlight to the Minister that I've heard from language schools in Torbay, particularly International House Torquay, who've taken advantage of a group travel scheme for German students to be able to just use their ID cards to learn languages in England. What opportunities do you see of rolling out a similar scheme for Swiss, Italian and Spanish students?
Minister.
I can update the honourable gentleman. Indeed, I will write to him on the 3 specific countries that he's mentioned. But I will also say the announcement that I've made today on Erasmus Plus clearly opens up now even more opportunities for schools, which I'm sure will be widely welcomed.
Christmas jumper Phil Brickle.
And as a former Erasmus student myself, can I congratulate the Paymaster General on the steely resolve, the pragmatism and the significant progress he has been able to achieve. Only a few weeks ago, 2 fellow Erasmus students from the UK who I studied with in Germany were in this place. I was with them for the first time in 13 years, and they've messaged me today to congratulate the government. Does he agree with me that the most important thing is to deliver on the concrete commitments agreed with our EU partners on the May Summit, as opposed to heeding the siren calls from the Lib Dem members opposite about a supposedly bespoke customs union?
Minister.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and I thank him for his kind words, indeed his 2 friends and former Erasmus friends and colleagues, and also, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, congratulate him on the Christmas jumper.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
Deputy Levanard, I welcome the Erasmus Plus agreement as closer ties with Europe are good news for the futures of thousands upon thousands of young people. Since 2022, the Tithe programme in Wales has offered life-changing opportunities for people to study abroad after Brexit slammed so many doors shut. Given its implications for Tithe, how will Wales's priorities be reflected in the administration of Erasmus Plus?
Good question.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, a Welsh MP did negotiate the new agreement, so hopefully that is a good start. But nonetheless, she's absolutely right to praise the Welsh Labour Government's work on the Tithe programme. It's great to see her praising the work of the Welsh Labour Government. I went in November, actually, to speak to civic society groups and those who are involved in that Tithe outreach. And what I discovered was that the work in particular they've done in terms of involving students and young people from disadvantaged backgrounds has frankly been exemplary, and it's work I am looking at in terms of access to Erasmus Plus now.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Minister's focus on jobs, bills and borders as part of a pragmatic and balanced reset of our relationship with the European Union. I've already heard from constituents like Robert in Boscombe, who is welcoming the fact that the UK will be rejoining Erasmus. When a government invests in our children, our country starts to care about our future again. So can I ask the Minister to update the House on progress towards a youth mobility scheme, and also what role he sees English language schools playing in our future economy as we bring European students to Bournemouth?
Minister.
It's always good to hear from him and indeed from Robert. As I indicated, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will look to have agreed the Youth Experience Scheme by the time of the next UK-EU Summit, and he can be assured what a priority that is for the Government.
Sarah Dyke.
Deputy Speaker, mandatory method of production labelling on animal-derived products could improve animal welfare, increase UK farmer profits by over £46 million annually. But we must make sure the UK-EU SPF agreement is aligned on standards and quality, so British farmers in Glastonbury and Somerton across the country are not undercut by lower welfare imports. So can the Minister outline what progress has been made on negotiating a comprehensive SPS agreement?
So SPS negotiations are underway. We want to complete them by the time of the next summit. And on the specific issues she raised, I'd be grateful if she could write to me so I can address it in detail.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I do refer members to my register of interest. And I thank the Minister for his statement, although I'm trying hard to visualise him playing basketball at Hackney College this morning. Perhaps photographs are available to confirm this actually happened. Apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker. So 73% of university-aged young people voted against Brexit. They voted to remain in the EU. So Erasmus always felt like a spiteful act. So I'm really pleased we were able to correct that injustice today. I worked in the university sector for almost 30 years before I was elected here, Madam Deputy Speaker. Hard to believe, I know. So I understand the benefits of Erasmus. But I do agree with the Minister that it wasn't a completely democratic process, and it was more middle-class students who tended to take part. So how will ensure that changes? Will there be monitoring? Will they consider targets?
A tip for other questioners, the question does not require a preamble. Minister.
I mean, I may have been putting it a bit high when I said playing basketball, but I did contribute in my own way, Madam Deputy Speaker. But with regard to his second point, obviously the Erasmus Plus programme has changed so that there's this wider range of activities available, as I've said, from youth work, adult education, sports. But also the way in which Erasmus support is provided means there is additional support when you're from a disadvantaged background. So of course he's right in terms of monitoring it, but my priority as well is making sure that we're driving that participation in the first place, which is the priority of the next few months.
Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for what is a clear Lib Dem win. I just want to repeat the question from my frontbench colleague regarding the need for a transparent assessment of the potential economic growth benefits of a customs deal, because in 3 years we will all be seeking a new mandate, and at that point, if we can really understand the potential economic benefits, then our residents and our citizens can make an informed decision. So can I please encourage him to give second thought to that study?
I've got a bit of bad news for him, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a Labour win, I'm afraid. But to his second point, I mean, if he wants to discuss the customs union, a good start might be the workers at Jaguar Land Rover.
Chris Wentz.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I welcome the statement from my right honourable friend today. As he will be aware, my constituency of Harlow has a lower than average number of young people that go to university, something I would like to see addressed. However, can he talk to me through the benefits of the Erasmus Plus stream for those young people in my constituency of Harlow who don't necessarily go to university education?
No, he's absolutely right. And to go back to this morning, I'd have in my mind someone who wants to do some basketball coaching, for example, which is what I was talking about this morning. Perhaps an engineer on an apprenticeship who has chosen not to go to university but might well want, nonetheless, to go to a placement abroad. So they are just some examples of what I think are the wide range of benefits I hope his constituents in Harlow will be able to benefit from.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I warmly welcome the Erasmus agreement that the Minister has announced, a Christmas present for young people. Turning to the SPS agreement that he is currently negotiating, I hope those negotiations will be just as successful because it is undoubtedly in the best interest of this country. So can the Minister confirm to me and to some very invested constituents of mine that bivalve molluscs or mussels will be included in the SPS agreement that he is currently negotiating?
Yes or no?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, first of all, the SPS agreement is a great priority. I'm fully aware of the issue around bivalve molluscs, and indeed shellfish from what I believe are Class B waters from my memory. And certainly, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm willing to speak directly to the Right Honourable Lady about the bivalve molluscs, and maybe she can write to me about it. But I can tell her this, the SPS agreement will mean products like British bangers and others that we currently can't export to the EU, we will be able to do so again.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would my right honourable friend expect the new agency with responsibility for Erasmus Plus to work with the excellent Erasmus Plus Student Network UK to promote these brilliant opportunities for our young people, including in higher and further education institutions in Scotland?
I'd certainly expect to see that collaborative approach, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Monica Harding.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituents in Esher and Walton will be delighted that the government is returning the UK to Erasmus+. One of my constituents wrote to me this morning, it's a win for those of us who think that international learning should be open to all, not just the children of the rich who can afford international fees. But she said, it is too late for me. I was 11 when Brexit happened and I'm now 21 in my last year of university. So will the government undo the wrongs done to kids like her by the last Conservative government, go further and faster and commit to a youth mobility scheme?
Well, the government is already committed to a youth experience scheme by the time of the next UK-EU summit. And whether it's through Erasmus Plus today or indeed the youth experience scheme, this government is delivering concrete benefits and opportunities for young people.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, whatever your view on Brexit, leaving the Erasmus scheme was unambiguously an act of self-harm, denying opportunities for thousands of young people across the country to study and learn abroad. So can I congratulate the Minister on re-securing those benefits, but they cannot just be the preserve of a narrow few. How can we make sure a far wider group of young people in my constituency are able to benefit from this new scheme?
My honourable friend is absolutely right about spreading those opportunities to people of all backgrounds. And of course, I will drive forward work as a minister. But I say to colleagues across the House, actually, speaking in favour of this scheme, it's something that we collectively, as members of Parliament, can be speaking about to our constituents as well.
Liz Jarvis.
Deputy Speaker, I absolutely welcome today's announcement, which will be of huge benefit to students from my constituency. Does the Minister agree with me that all young people from all backgrounds deserve to be able to work and study in Europe? And the party to my right should apologise for snatching opportunities away from an entire generation.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I entirely agree with the spreading of opportunities, and frankly, I'm absolutely baffled by the front bench position opposite.
John Flinger.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the son of a Deutschlehrer, can I say danke? Because Christmas has come early to the young people and the teachers in my constituency of Rugby. And that's because, does the Minister agree with me that greater cooperation and friendship across Europe and beyond is the best way forward for our world and for our country, and perhaps that is why those with EU derangement syndrome are so opposed to his policy?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the cooperative, grown-up approach we're using is delivering results and benefits for people here in the United Kingdom. I'm proud of that approach, and it is what delivers.
Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. This scheme will help countless young people from Wokingham to gain invaluable life experiences, and it is to be welcomed. The Minister says that the Conservative Brexit deal was a bad deal. Will he therefore look to correct this and begin to negotiations for a bespoke UK-EU customs union, helping to cut the endless red tape and freeing up many Wokingham businesses to do business with their European customers? A bespoke deal like that could raise £25 billion, far better than increasing national insurance contributions.
The honourable gentleman is very welcome to continue his debating. Whilst he's doing that, I will correct the iniquities in the previous deal every working day.
Andrew Lewin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was Christmas Eve 5 years ago when Boris Johnson signed his fateful deal, which took away opportunities for young people, kicked us out of Erasmus. So can I thank the Minister for exercising that ghost of Christmas past? And can I ask him if he agrees with me that the message we've heard in this chamber today is the Conservative Party wants to keep opportunities locked away from young people. Reform cares so little that they haven't even shown up. And if you want to extend opportunities for our young people, you need to back a Labour government.
Minister.
100%, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's this Labour government that's delivering for our young people.
Final question, Ben Coleman. In an hour, Ben Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I congratulate the Minister as heartily as everyone else has for bringing the UK back into Erasmus, ensuring that people from all backgrounds, including university students, can once again enjoy the opportunities that the Tory Brexit took away. Part of my constituency of Chelsea and Fulham ranks among the 12 most deprived areas in the United Kingdom, and I'm looking forward, I should tell the Minister, to helping the young people there seize the new opportunities. But may I also encourage the Minister to be ambitious in concluding a youth experience scheme which would further restore the opportunities our young people deserve?
Absolutely, Madam Deputy Speaker, and indeed by the time of the next UK-EU summit we hope to have concluded negotiations on the linking of our emissions trading systems, on the food and drink agreement, and also as well on the youth experience scheme.
That is the end of the first statement. I'll give the front benches a few moments to shuffle over as we go on to our second statement on provisional local government finance settlement. And if the Minister is ready, Minister Alison McGovern.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the 20th of November this year, my department published a policy statement setting out our approach to the first multi-year local government finance settlement in a decade. Today we publish the provisional settlement itself and launch our formal consultation on these proposals, and it represents the choices we are making as a government. Unlike the Tories, we won't look the other way as poverty gets worse. We won't ignore the economic and social costs of deprivation. The spending review announced over £5 billion of new grant funding for local services over the multi-year settlement period. This includes £3.4 billion of new grant funding being delivered through this settlement. Madam Deputy Speaker, before I give more details, I want to make this point, because for 14 years the Tories decimated local government, asking local leaders to do more with less, and this had consequences. Local high streets are always changing, but deprived towns saw more empty shops, more vape shops, more pawnbrokers than other places, and their councils didn't have the resources to do anything about it. In 2019, SIPFA found that nearly 800 libraries had closed since 2010, and in 2022 the Guardian newspaper uncovered a real terms annual cut of nearly £330 million to the upkeep of our local parks, with the biggest cuts in the poorest parts of the country. The last decade and a half of austerity impacted every community, but the very worst effects were felt by people living in the most deprived areas, and that was a choice. By breaking the link between funding and deprivation, the Tories punished poorer councils. Year after year, they exacerbated inequality, and as a result, too many places in this country feel forgotten, left to fend for themselves. Now, the answer isn't reforms return to austerity, or the Tories carping from the sidelines. It's to use the best data we have available to redesign the funding system so that deprivation is recognised and addressed within the settlement. That's why the figures we are publishing today are derived using their very latest data from the 2025 Index of Multiple Deprivation, released at the end of October this year. It's why, according to our analysis, whereas under the old system, deprivation scores could only account for 25% of variation in per capita funding allocations. Under this settlement, it's up to 75%. With other important factors such as coastline, miles of road or visitor numbers making up the rest. And more, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are giving councils more certainty, with the first multi-year settlement in a decade allowing local leaders to focus on long-term investment and change. We're addressing the damage of austerity by maintaining the £600 million recovery grant allocations from 25-26, targeted towards those most impacted by the cuts, and introducing a recovery grant guarantee providing an above real terms increase to social care authorities who received the grant last year. We're supporting local authorities through change by providing funding floors and phasing in new allocations across the multi-year settlement. We're improving efficiency and value for money by simplifying an unprecedented 36 funding streams worth over £56 billion over the multi-year settlement. We're resetting the business rates retention system to restore the balance between aligning funding with need and rewarding local growth. and we are unlocking the dream of home ownership for more people by boosting real incentives for councils to build new homes. And we know councils are concerned about what will happen at the next spending review, so we'll keep working very closely with them to avoid cliff edges in funding. This settlement, Madam Deputy Speaker, is our most significant move yet to make English local government sustainable at last. It will take overall core spending power for local government to over £84.6 billion by 28-29, equivalent to a 15% cash terms increase compared to 25-26. The Labour government has made it clear it backs local government through action. Since coming into power, we have made available a 23.6% increase in core spending power in 28-29 compared to 24-25. However, we have to do more because the previous government's funding system left local government in chaos. Social care costs were soaring out of control with very little focus on prevention. And right now, children's social care, the impact of a failing SEND system and the spiralling costs of homelessness and temporary accommodation has destabilised council funding, even where councils have acted judiciously to protect the public pound through this difficult era. And that's why we need national change to empower local councils to maximise the benefits of this statement. This government is building a national care service based on higher quality of care, greater choice and control and better integration. This is backed by around £4.5 billion additional funding made available for adult social care in 28-29 compared to 25-26. We're changing children's social care through the Families First partnership, funded with £2.5 billion over the next 3 years. Because all children deserve good parenting and a loving home environment. And we know that costs less in the long run too. And the children's social care residential market is broken. That's why we're taking action through the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. Using these powers, the Housing and Education Secretaries will explore how we might implement a profit cap in the children's social care placement market. This would be a crucial step in ensuring public money delivers value and care, not profiteering. And we'll set out further information on our approach in 2026. On special educational needs and disabilities, the Government will bring forward the Schools White Paper in the new year, which will set out ambitious plans to reform special educational needs provision. But we recognise the impacts that the dedicated schools grants deficits are having on local authorities' accounts. In future, special educational needs provision will be funded by central government. Local authorities will not be expected to fund costs from general funds once the statutory override ends in March 2028, and we'll provide further details on our plans to support local authorities with these deficits later in the settlement process. And Madam Deputy Speaker, members have already heard me say this on homelessness, but I know temporary accommodation is also a growing financial pressure on councils, with spend reaching nearly £3 billion in 24-26. That's why last week we published the National Plan to End Homelessness, our strategy to prevent homelessness before it occurs. And we've set clear objectives to get our children out of costly B&Bs and to help councils balance the books. Now, on council tax, the Government intends to maintain a core 3% council tax referendum principle and a 2% adult social care precept for the vast majority of councils. The Government is committed to ensuring the funding system is fair for taxpayers across the country, and in some areas, council tax levels are radically lower than others. Council tax bills for £10 million houses in some of the wealthiest parts of the country can be less than an ordinary working family pays in places like Blackpool or Darlington. The Government plans to lift referendum principles in 27-28 and 28-29 for Wandsworth, Westminster, Hammersmith and Fulham, City of London, Kensington and Chelsea, and Windsor and Maidenhead. And this will improve fairness. Taxpayers in these councils have the lowest bills in the country, and this year they paid up to £1,280 less than the average council taxpayer. This change will enable the Government to allocate over £250 million of funding more fairly in the system, instead of subsidising bills for the 500,000 households in these councils. It will also provide greater flexibility for these authorities in deciding how to manage their finances following our reforms. The councils will decide on the level of council tax increase to set, on whether to draw on the relatively relatively high alternative sources of income that a number of them benefit from. Now, we know adapting to our reforms will take time. That's why we'll continue to have a support framework in place next year to help authorities in challenging positions. Following precedent set by previous governments, councils in significant financial difficulty can request additional flexibility from the government. In making this decision, unlike the Tories, the government has been clear that it would not agree to increases where the council has above average council tax. In recognition of cost of living pressures, each application will be considered on a case-by-case basis, and decisions will reflect the support offered to low-income and vulnerable residents. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, in closing, I go back to the libraries closed and the parks neglected. Under this Labour government, not only is our Chancellor of the Exchequer making sure our schools have libraries, but with this funding, councils can make sure that parks are good for our children to play into. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, we can never turn the clock back. We can't undo all the past damage to councils. But we can change town hall finances so that councillors battling the consequences of poverty have a government on their side for once. Yeah. We said that we would restore the link between funding and deprivation, and today we are doing exactly that. Yeah. No more forgotten people left to fend for themselves, no more forgotten places sneered at by members opposite, but a fighting chance for every place in this country, and I commend this statement to
Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's no surprise that the government has sought to sneak this consultation out with the minimum of attention. Proposed as it was for simply a written ministerial statement at the last possible second. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, we can all see that poverty is rising. A shrinking economy and rising unemployment are driving that, combined with inflation running at 3.6% and energy bills higher. Rising business rates, Madam Deputy Speaker, are crippling our businesses, and local communities everywhere are feeling the pressure created by this government's choices. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, how does this settlement help our councils to deal with that? Well, firstly, it assumes that working people, all people, will pay higher taxes everywhere. We should not misunderstand the Minister's words on core spending power. This enshrines an assumption that taxes will rise to the maximum possible extent everywhere, with fees and charges for parking, libraries and everything else following the same trajectory. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, even if the inflation target of 2% is reached, and currently at 3.6%, that seems unlikely, the increase assuming 2%, represents a 1% uplift for local government during the whole life of this Parliament, for a sector that was left £1.5 billion worse off by the rise in national insurance contributions alone. Resources at a local level are going backwards, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a settlement that punishes efficiency, with those councils that deliver the best value for money being raided to bail out the more spendthrift. And I'm sure we can guess which parties tend to run those councils. It is a settlement which introduces new higher taxes on hospitality, voted for by every other party besides the Conservatives in this chamber, bearing down on investment and opportunity. It brings in a homes tax on more expensive homes, money that goes to the Treasury, not councils. In the book, Red Book, that's estimated to cost the government a net £335 million due to the damage it does to the housing market. Only this hapless Labour government could bring in new taxes that actually cost the Treasury money. Absolutely. And here they go again. And also, Madam Deputy Speaker, it repeats the fallacy that poverty is the only driver of council costs. The average English local authority delivers over 800 different services. Our rural coastal areas, anywhere with lots of retirees, faces high costs of adult social care, but don't necessarily score high on indices of deprivation, despite those costs being driven by statutory duties. The Undertaker Prime Minister is ushering many councils towards their financial doom. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, as they hammer Wychavon and Stratford-on-Avon, they're also hammering Ashfield, Dartford, Burnley, Cambridge, Hyndburn, Lichfield, Burnley and Bolsover, amongst the places worst hit by this financial settlement. Their detachment from the consequence of their actions is striking. And this is whilst the Prime Minister and Chancellor dodge the new high-value council tax in their grace and favour accommodation. And all of this, Madam Deputy Speaker, behind those smoke and mirrors which disguises from our local authorities the financial impact. They've been required to carry out their public budget consultations without having had sight of the impact that this will have. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me conclude with some straightforward questions. Can the Minister tell the House when our locally elected brethren will learn the net impact of this on their council tax budgets? Can she tell the House when we'll debate the impact of their cuts to SEND capital funding? When will the House have the opportunity to scrutinise the Government's decision to impose exceptional financial support or higher council tax rises to bail out the consequences of its decisions? When will it provide clarity on the impact of its SEND proposals on council budgets? How will the Government use the budgets allocated to the new devolution areas and now snatched back to mitigate the impact of their decisions? And will the Minister admit to the House, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this is a tax-raising, job-destroying, housing-hobbling, rate-raising, service-slashing, community-crippling, election-cancelling settlement that fails even on its intended purpose of shunting resources to politically favoured areas?